I'm one of El Mundo's 6 founders. You're basically telling me that
Publishing what you did had negative consequences for you, right? Was it the Felipe Gonzalez government? In those years, when Euskadi ta Askatasuna was killing almost every day, the government made the decision to set up a terrorist group to kill Euskadi ta Askatasuna members. The Cote Cabezudo case began in 2013. That's when the first complaint was filed. Probably the most serious sexual offender there has ever been in Spain. Cote Cabezudo was a well-known photographer from San Sebastian, and he raped dozens of women. He recorded all of that on video and uploaded it to paid pornography websites. Why was he being protected?
there was something behind it that made this person practically untouchable.
In a statement in court, Cote Cabezudo says that he has videos in which politicians, journalists, judges, police officers, and military personnel appear. He says it, it's not me saying it. Tres Media still keeps as the network's star presenter a guy who has been the male lead in child pornography sessions. Wow.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of The Factory. Today I have the great pleasure of having with me one of the bravest journalists Spain has ever produced, the great Melchor Miralles. He has uncovered cases in this country such as the Grupos Antiterroristas de Liberación and the Cote Cabezudo case, and the consequences he has faced as a journalist seeking the truth, which I believe is often lacking today. They have been brutal.
How are you, Melchor? How are you?
Thank you for
Coming. Happy to be here with you, Jota. A pleasure.
authentic. Thank you.
Melchor. So that people can get a little familiar with you, with your background, with your career, how would you describe yourself, or how would you describe your entire professional life?
Well, Jota, I am nothing more and nothing less than a journalist. And journalism is a profession that, honestly, I think is going through a critical moment. But it's a profession that consists of something which, in theory, is simple. It's about finding out what's happening. And for that, you have to be out on the street, taking the pulse of things, of life. Once you've found out about something, you inform yourself. You look for the truth. Once you're informed, you check the accuracy of the information you have. And once you have the information, you publish it. Whether it's in print, on the radio, on television, whatever you do, I've done every part of the profession, and you publish it no matter who it affects, even if the one affected is you. That's journalism. And I always say that journalists, when we practice our profession, we are not exercising our right to freedom of expression. We only use that right when we give an opinion. When we report, when a journalist receives information, are we the holders or intermediaries of a right that is not ours, which is the right of all citizens to receive information? And therefore, information does not belong to the journalist or to the media outlet the journalist works for. Information belongs to the citizens. And that's why a journalist is obligated to publish any information they have, no matter who it bothers. And as I said at the beginning, no matter who falls, even if the one who falls is you. I always say that I would be a billionaire today if I had dedicated my life, instead of fulfilling my obligation to publish, to not publishing the things I have published. That's journalism, which is the profession I've dedicated my life to and the profession I love.
So are you basically telling me that publishing what you've published has had negative consequences in your life, right?
Well, let's see. I wouldn't change in that sense. Nothing in my life that has caused me harm. Yes.
What have been the biggest publications, or let's say the publications with the greatest consequences? For your image, environment, and society in general, the most serious?
Well, I dedicated many years to investigating the Grupos Antiterroristas de Liberación, a terrorist group organized and financed by the socialist government of Felipe González, to assassinate Euskadi Ta Askatasuna terrorists, and during those same years to report on and investigate Euskadi Ta Askatasuna's terrorist activities. That caused me enormous harm. On 2 occasions, Euskadi Ta Askatasuna tried to kill me. It's not just that they threatened me, which they did many times, but on 2 occasions I escaped from being murdered because they came to kill me. One time at my house, and another when I was filming in Seville, and I got away because they were stopped. The civil guard arrested the Andalusia commando. After their arrest, they asked, "What will you do next?" On Monday, we planned to assassinate Melchor Miralles. If they weren't arrested, I wouldn't be here today, right? And as a consequence of all those threats, right, I lived 12 years of my life with a police escort, which is something very unpleasant. Yeah, but that's what I had to deal with. And then, right, with the Cote Cabezudo case, it cost me professional ostracism, getting fired from the media I collaborated with, which was how I made a living, right? Specifically from Spanish television and from Channel 4 of the Mediaset group, from Risto Mejide's program. And those are consequences and damages. But I insist I would act the same way I did. I mean, I like my trade, I like my profession, and therefore I don't regret having published the things I've published. On the contrary, I'm very proud to have fulfilled my duty the best I could.
I want to briefly discuss with you the topic of the Grupos Antiterroristas de Liberación. How does it reach you? How does that information get to you? And above all, what is the reaction of the media when you come with information about that case?
Well, I was working then at a newspaper called Diario 16, and I was responsible for information related to the interior, with the Ministry of the Interior. Police Matters, terrorism, Euskadi Ta Askatasuna terrorism, and then the Grupos Antiterroristas de Liberación appeared. And then, well, it was my responsibility, it was within my area of responsibility at the newspaper. And
what are
the Grupos Antiterroristas de Liberación, the Grupos Antiterroristas de Liberación, anti-terrorist liberation groups? That is the government of Felipe González, the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party government of Felipe González, EH. In those years, when Euskadi Ta Askatasuna was killing practically every day, Euskadi Ta Askatasuna EH moved around France. The Euskadi Ta Askatasuna members, like Pedro in his own home, and González's government couldn't manage. For the French government to take action against the Euskadi Ta Askatasuna terrorists. And then the government made the decision to set up a terrorist group to assassinate Euskadi Ta Askatasuna members in France. And then, when did the Grupos Antiterroristas de Liberación start? In fact, I started investigating it before the acronym Grupos Antiterroristas de Liberación even came out, which took a while to appear. I started investigating the murders and began publishing. That behind those murders of Tarras in France, there were Spanish police officials involved. And the pressures from González's government on Diario 16, the newspaper whose director was Pedro J. Ramirez, faced such intense pressure that the owner of the newspaper confronted Pedro J. Ramirez about it. To my director, that he had to fire me and that we had to stop writing about the Grupos Antiterroristas de Liberación. And I was lucky that my director defended me. And he told Juan Tomás de Salas, the owner of Diario 16, that no, that he wasn't going to fire me, nor were we going to stop reporting on the Grupos Antiterroristas de Liberación. And then they fired him, and when they fired him, I left without being fired. Because my dignity wouldn't allow me to work at a newspaper where they had fired my boss for defending my work. And other colleagues, a few colleagues from Diario 16 also left. And then we decided to start a newspaper so we could publish the stories we had, and we founded the newspaper El Mundo. And at El Mundo we kept publishing about the Grupos Antiterroristas de Liberación and about a lot of exclusives. You are one of those.
Founders of the newspaper El Mundo?
I am one of the 6 founders of the newspaper El Mundo. Yes, sir. Wow, I didn't know that, huh? Yes, it's one of the most beautiful things I've done in my life. I mean, founding a newspaper is something, yes. On top of that, it has...
Great, and it also has national impact. Pretty good.
The Mundo project and the success it had from the very beginning because of the stories we published, which others didn't publish, right? It led to it becoming a case that has been studied at universities as a success story of a media outlet that, in a very short time, because Pedro Jota was fired in February 1989, and I left when he was fired. 5 other colleagues also left at that time. And in October, we launched the newspaper El Mundo. So between February and October, we were able to start a new newspaper, which was a tremendous success.
So Melchor, about the Grupos Antiterroristas de Liberación issue, you already faced pressure, but practically, thanks to that pressure, you achieved the project of your life, which is launching El Mundo. Now, I want to get into the case for which we're sitting here today because it worries me.
But Jota, let me interrupt you for a moment. Pressure is inherent to journalism, you know? And the problem isn't so much about receiving pressure. The problem is with the journalists or the media outlets that give in to that pressure. It's like when someone threatens you. I always say, someone who truly wants to harm you doesn't threaten. Those who threaten just want something else.
To intimidate you.
And for you to stop doing something that you're doing. To me, every pressure and every threat I've received has only motivated me to keep doing what I was doing. Huh? And that's the point. Pressures have always existed and will continue. The issue is whether you give in to them. All right.
I understand perfectly. Before we move on to the topic of the Cote Cabezudo case, I want to ask you a quick question. Do you think that modern journalism, even the newspaper you founded yourself, is servile to those pressures from the government?
Let's see. I think we live in a time where what I see is a lot of propaganda and very little information. Huh? I'm very critical of the media, and I find it sad to see. Like, so many big media groups are servile to the government because they live off institutional advertising. I find it unbelievable. And so I'm critical of the profession, of my craft. And basically, for what I'm telling you, I see a lot of propaganda and very little information.
I like that criticism and I share it greatly. And it has much more value and weight when it comes from someone who comes from the world, in my opinion. Melchor, I want to move on to the Cote Cabezudo case. I want you to tell me how you get the information, the case itself. I want you to explain it to the whole audience. Everything that surrounds this disaster.
Let's see. The Cote Cabezudo case began in 2013. It's the first complaint from the first of the victims. And it's the case of a photographer from San Sebastian, Cote Cabezudo, probably the most serious sexual offender there has ever been in Spain. First complaint in 2013, and the case comes to me in 2015, okay? By then, the investigation had been going on for 2 years and no media outlet was talking about the case. There are dozens of women who were victims of sexual abuse by Cote Cabezudo and other people. And Cote Cabezudo, He was a very well-known photographer from San Sebastian who worked for the only modeling agency in San Sebastian, which was called First Models. Mr. Olasagasti was in charge. And it was an agency that had the protection of the mayor of San Sebastian at that time, the socialist Mr. Elorza, because the city council didn't give licenses to any other agency to let them work, so it was the only agency. Anyone who wanted to be a model, actress, and so on in San Sebastian would go to First Models. And then when they arrived at First Models, they were told, you have to get a photo book done. With Cote Cabezudo, and Cote Cabezudo in his studio, he took some photos that were more than just photos for a model's portfolio. They were pornographic photos, and he raped dozens of women. Cabezudo recorded all of that on video and uploaded it to some paid pornography websites. And a good number of the victims were minors when the events happened. Okay, so 2013, the first complaint against Cote Cabezudo. This wasn't coming out anywhere. And the case comes to me. I can't say how it comes to me. No, sources are protected. Yes. And it comes to me in 2015. And I had a production company back then. So to me, when the case comes to me, to the person who tells me about the case, I say, if what you're telling me is true, of course I'm going to tell it. They said no one talks about the case, so I decided to investigate. And once I confirm that it's true, I have no doubt about reporting it. So I made one. I had a production company, and I had a website called Sin Filtros from my production company, which was called Acuerdos de Atar. And then I made a first video exposing the case, a video that was called Objetivo Pervertido. And I started to report through my production company about the Cote Cabezudo case. The case was being investigated in a court in San Sebastian, and it was being handled by a female judge. Her name was Ana Isabel Perez Asenjo. It's important for people to remember this name because this woman, the investigating judge, for years was protecting Cote Cabezudo. She didn't order his imprisonment, even though the victim's lawyer, Mario Diaz, was requesting his imprisonment. Why? This isn't just one person's word against another's. He says there are videos, meaning these assaults were recorded, and those recordings were uploaded to pornographic websites. And he wasn't sent to prison. Cote Cabezudo and MMM until the year 2018 when the lawyer Mario Diaz made a video that went viral on March 8th, right? And after making that video go viral in which he was denouncing, since the judge didn't order prison for Cote Cabezudo and MPM was giving the victims disgraceful treatment, for the victims, it was a nightmare. Going to court every time they were called to testify. And as a result of a complaint filed by the victims against this judge, the San Sebastian court removed Ana Isabel Perez Asenjo from the case for failing to fulfill her duty to investigate the case. And they hand the investigation over to another judge who, the moment he receives the case, studies the file and makes a ruling. Year 2018, the imprisonment of Cote Cabezudo, which is incredible since it's been 5 years since 2013. Today, just imagine, Jota, that someone goes to court bringing videos of some assaults that were later uploaded to pornographic websites, paid ones. You had to pay €14.95 to access those images. How long does it take to go to prison? That guy, 0 point, well, Cote Cabezudo, protected by Ana Isabel Perez Asenio and by other judges from San Sebastian. He didn't go to prison until 2018.
Why were they protecting him? There was something behind it that made this person practically untouchable.
Let's see. Everything I say is not conspiracy theories or assumptions. Everything I say is based on, well, we've come, saya suek, frustrating. There is a video, there is a documentary produced called In Their Name, which is on Netflix and can be watched, in which that video is shown. In which, during a statement in court, Cote Cabezudo says that he has videos, sexual videos in which, as he says, politicians, journalists, judges, police officers, and military personnel appear. He says it, I mean, it's not me saying it, with minors, and with adults. He says that he has sexual videos in which they appear, and he lists them. He says, police officers, military personnel, journalists, lawyers, politicians from one party and another. And then there are testimonies in court that point to Mayor San Sebastian, Mr. Elor, as a key person in the recruitment structure of girls by Cote Cabezudo, because of the protection he provided to the First Models Agency and because he financed Cote Cabezudo, being mayor with public money. Exhibitions, books. When there were many photographers in San Sebastian who didn't receive any subsidies, Cote Cabezudo received subsidies and support from, oh, Mr. Ilorza, huh? And the testimonies in court that talk about high voltage sexual parties that were held in a villa in San Sebastian, to which he supplied girls. Cote Cabezudo. Parties that were organized by a magistrate from the San Sebastian court named Yolanda Domenyo. Very important people attended them, which fits with what Cabezudo said, since politicians, lawyers, notaries, journalists, and important people from San Sebastian attended.
So you decide to publish this? What's happening?
Well, what happens is, to my surprise, no media outlet is reporting on the Cote Cabezudo case, which I found amazing since I was the one who brought it up. Since I was the one who brought it up myself. Someone shares information and other media outlets provide relevant details about the serial rapist who assaulted dozens of girls, yes, and with a structure. So what? And who has distributed exactly those images on paid pornographic websites? And I find a deafening silence, which didn't surprise me, because the first thing I did, when I got the information, I started to investigate and look, to compare what I had received. I spoke with a friend who was a high-ranking officer in the Ertzaintza, the Basque Autonomous Police, during my years working in Bilbao. And he told me, look, I'm retired now, I can't help you because I no longer have access to documents and such. So you asked me, do I know Cote Cabezudo, the Cote Cabezudo case? Melchor told me I know him perfectly, I know him so well that besides being a journalist, you're a friend because we've had a relationship for many years. I'm warning you, Melchor, that you have no damn idea what you're getting yourself into, and because I care about you, I'm telling you to be very careful. Because the Grupos Antiterroristas de Liberación were a joke compared to what you're getting yourself into. These are very dangerous, deadly people. So I had already been warned by someone I trust that I was getting involved in a delicate matter. And I start publishing, and I find that what happens is
Avoid.
absolute no media outlet talks about the subject. And for me, professional ostracism is hard. Back then, I was working as a contributor, which was how I made a living. In addition to my production company work, I also contributed. I appeared on a Spanish morning talk show and on Risto Mejide's program on Cuatro Mediaset.
What's Risto's show called again?
Is it a lie? And both on Spanish television and on Risto's show, right? One day I bring up the Cote Cabezudo case, and as soon as I finish saying Cabezudo, they cut me off either with a commercial, a video, or something, and tell me we can't talk about this, and then they say goodbye to me. It's something I couldn't believe, right? But it happened. And with media outlets that boast about publishing and telling the truth, well, in the case of Risto, that's a lie. Risto Mejide, his show is called Everything is a Lie, but they act like they're progressive and like to mention it. Cote Cabezudo, interruption. Insert an ad, play a video, and tell me the sun. We've come this far.
Why do you think that? Tell me a little bit about the background. I imagine you've had a lot of reflection about why this particular case set off the alarm so strongly. And was it so hard for you?
Well, what I just told you about the statement in court by Cote Cabezudo, well, it's very illustrative, isn't it? That this man said, under caution, that he has sexual videos in which important people appear. And then what I have found, because I insist, I'm not talking about conspiracies, important people, right? And I have published 2 names of 2 relevant people. One of them, Jorge Fernandez, star presenter of A3 Media, of the show The Wheel of I don't know what. I have published that Jorge Fernandez. He was the male lead in a session photographed by Cote Cabezudo of child pornography, in which Jorge Fernandez appears with a minor. Did you know that?
I have no idea.
Have you seen it? No idea.
That case sounds familiar, almost like the Spanish Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, there might be similarities, but I insist that, and was it, huh? The images of Jorge Fernandez, I handed them over to the prosecutor's office, and the prosecutor's office in San Sebastian issued a decree in which it stated images that constitute
A crime
of child pornography. The one starring Jorge Fernandez. And he couldn't take legal action because the crime had expired, because the images were from years before. I called Jorge Fernandez before submitting it to the prosecutor's office, because Jorge Fernandez's name kept coming up in Cote Cabezudo's conversations, who spoke of him as a friend, a role model, who was Mr. Spain. Because Cabezudo took his photos and promoted him, and Cote Cabezudo in his studio was filled with photos of Jorge Fernandez. And investigating the case, I spoke with Jorge 3 times, telling him, Jorge, it would be important for the victims of Cote Cabezudo if a relevant person like you spoke up and told what you know. And I don't want to talk, I don't want anything. For the documentary in their name from Netflix, we asked him to participate. Because we considered it important that a guy who was a friend of Cabezudo, someone Cabezudo talked about constantly, would say what he knew for the victims, right? Jorge Fernandez said, "Not me. I want nothing to do with Cote Cabezudo. So what about me?" Before handing over to the prosecutor's office the photos, the images of Jorge Fernandez with a minor, I called him. I said, "Hey Jorge, I'm calling you again. Why?" Some images of you from a session with Cote Cabezudo of child pornography in which you are an adult with a minor who is 15 years old. And then he says to me, hey, what? And he gives me the name, which I hadn't given him any names. He gives me the name of the model who appeared, the 15-year-old model. Let's say Mari Carmen, no, I don't want to give her name. He says to me, "Hey, but I didn't know Mari Carmen was underage." And then I said to him, "Hey, Jorge, I see that you remember the session perfectly because I never gave you Mari Carmen's name. I told you it was a session with a minor, but I didn't know she was a minor." And I said, "Hey, if this is with the prosecutor's office, then what?" Tres Media keeps as the star host of the network today a guy who has done sessions as the male lead in child pornography. And then they go on and on about it on their networks. On Antena 3, on La Sexta, talking about women, about feminism and all that. And you say, "Hey, your star host from the highest rated show on your network, has he made child pornography with a minor?" Nobody talks about the matter. I've published that Juan Maria Arzac, a famous chef, I don't know if you've heard of him, no? Well, the most important chef in Spain. For years, we don't have land. I have published the testimonies of two women who explain that in those pornography sessions of Cote Cabezudo, Juan Maria Arzac appeared. Have you seen that published anywhere? Has anyone talked about it? No, right? So, well, I've already given you two relevant names, right? And after that, this magistrate, Yolanda Domenyo, whom I mentioned, according to the testimonies provided, was the one who organized those high-voltage sexual parties. Yolanda Domenyo filed a complaint against me and against Mario Diaz, the lawyer for the victims of Cote Cabezudo. And the court ruled in our favor because it said that what we had said was true and that it wasn't, and she lost the complaint. And just so you get an idea, Joda, and so the viewers can get an idea of the level of protection that Cote Cabezudo, this serial rapist, had. When Judge Ana Isabel Perez Asenio was still handling the investigation, this infamous judge who had to be removed, right? On one occasion, on several occasions, yes. The victim's lawyer requested that Cote Cabezudo be sent to prison logically, and the judge denied it. And on one occasion, the prosecutor Bermudez from the San Sebastian court. You know that the prosecutor's office is hierarchical, and a prosecutor, if a boss tells him what he has to do, something, he has to do it. So Prosecutor Bermudez, after the umpteenth request to imprison Cabezudo, he told his superior, "As you know, the prosecutor's office is hierarchical." And then, after the umpteenth request made by Mario Diaz, the victim's lawyer, for him to be imprisoned, Cote Cabezudo, Prosecutor Bermudez informed his superior, whose name was Carmen Rebolo, who was the chief prosecutor of San Sebastian. He says, "Hey, there's another hearing. For the request to imprison Cabezudo, I'm going to request that he be sent to prison." So, Carmen Rebolo, it's important for people to know the names of those who have done these things. Prosecutor Carmen Rebolo ordered Prosecutor Bermudez not to request the imprisonment of Cote Cabezudo. And then Prosecutor Bermudez, who is an honest and decent man, said to her, "Well, if you order me not to request imprisonment, then I won't request it. But I won't oppose what the prosecution is requesting." And the chief prosecutor did something unusual, which was to remove him from that day and say, "Well, you're not going, I'm going myself." And it was the chief prosecutor of San Sebastian who went to oppose Cote Cabezudo being sent to prison.
I don't understand how this is possible. And that there isn't a massive reaction from people, from civil society in response to this information.
Miralles, this is all we found, Melchor.
With all this, it's silence, ostracism. I mean, how do you react when you see that? That the chief prosecutor is basically going to defend...
No, and the investigating judge? How did I react? Well, astonished. And this is one case. There have been people, because it's been many years reporting the case of Cote Cabezudo, and people who would say to me, "Damn, Melchor, you're so persistent, always with Cote Cabezudo, Cote Cabezudo." And I say, "Hey, if it were your daughter, would you think I'm being annoying?" And this is a case that once you've learned about it and you've met all these girls, well, you just can't walk away from it. I mean, I used to say I can't stop telling this story. Because I know them, because I've seen those images, I've seen those assaults. And you say, you can't abandon these women, as they have been abandoned for years by the justice system, and how they have been and continue to be abandoned by the society of Donostia, San Sebastian, and by all of Spain, by the media. I think it's terrible. So how does silence react then? Well, I find it depressing. I mean, the media, knowing about the case, didn't want to know anything. That I was forbidden to talk about Cote Cabezudo on Spanish television, on Cuatro, Risto Mejide, who acts like a champion, who tells the truth. Huh? I think it's really sad, and I insist that when you've met these girls, these women, you can't walk away from the case. I mean, I couldn't forgive myself if I stopped reporting on the Cote Cabezudo case. And the documentary. Will there be a second part? Because there are still many things left to tell, which I'm still investigating.
For anyone who wants to know, the documentary is called In Their Name, and it's on Netflix.
Netflix. There are 3 episodes on Netflix that tell part of everything I'm talking about, but not all of it. That's why I say there'll be a sequel.
You mentioned the mayor of San
Sebastian, what
does he have to do with all this? Well, we're getting involved here with powerful people, and I'm aware of that, and I accept the consequences.
Well, I stand by everything I say. There's judicial support, from the mayor of San Sebastian. What I have said and still say is that he has been identified by a witness as a key person in recruiting the girls for Cote Cabezudo, that Cote Cabezudo was financed by the San Sebastian City Council while he was mayor. Or Mr. Elorza, who was Pedro Sanchez's right-hand man. We have to remember that, right? And that's what I'm saying, and I can tell you here that this is going to blow your mind, that Mr. Elorza, he filed a lawsuit against us, against Mario Diaz, the victim's lawyer, and against me. And a trial was held in San Sebastian, a trial at the courthouse, and witnesses appeared there. A witness knows that they are obligated to tell the truth, and if they don't tell the truth, they are committing the crime of perjury. And in that court in San Sebastian, people were heard with their first and last names, with their faces in a courtroom, and that's recorded. To say that Mr. Elorza was known in San Sebastian as the Folaniños, that's not something I'm saying. I'm telling you something that a witness who was required to tell the truth said in a court in San Sebastian. Huh? So that's what I'm saying about Mr. Elorza, what has been said in court by witnesses in legal cases. Huh? So what? Or Mr. Elorza, who was the mayor of San Sebastian when all this happened, who knew, Elorza, who knew him? He has never spoken out to express his solidarity with the victims of Cote Cabezudo for events that took place for years in the city where he was the mayor.
Does this case involve anyone else as important as the ones you've mentioned? With full names?
Well, does it involve? I've already mentioned several to you, several prosecutors, judges. Well, I've given you the name of a judge. Yes, president of the San Sebastian court, Yolanda Omeño, Maria Victoria Cinto, a lady magistrate from San Sebastian, who later became a member of the General Council of the Judiciary, deceased. May God have her in his glory. I gave you the name Jorge Fernandez, the name MMM. Juan Mariarzac, the most important and famous chef in Spain, because everyone goes to his restaurant. Yes, all the important people who visit San Sebastian. And they appear in a complaint filed with the Office of the Attorney General. More names appear. And then I'll tell you about another protection case. Me. On the website I had, the one I called Sin Filtros, I published a video where I explained that Cote Cabezudo frequently traveled to Senegal, to Africa, to Senegal, to rape girls in Senegal. The lawyer, Mario Diaz, filed a complaint with the National Court. Because when a Spaniard commits a crime outside of Spain, the National Court has jurisdiction. He filed a complaint with the National Court Prosecutor's Office, okay? A year later, without knowing anything, he shows up at the Prosecutor's Office of the National Court and says, hey, a year ago I filed a complaint against Cote Cabezudo for these events. Rapes committed in Senegal, and I haven't heard anything. I want to know how the case is going. And a government official with a full name tells you, oh no, I checked in the computer, or whatever it was. And she says, oh no, this report was destroyed. And Mario Diaz...
Destroyed, that's it.
That's not normal. Can't you say archived? She said destroyed. Yes. He asks, how? Destroyed. What does that mean? Has it been archived? She replies, no, destroyed. The chief prosecutor, Javier Zaragoza, when he was transferred to another post and left the head of the National Court Prosecutor's Office. Before leaving, he ordered this complaint to be destroyed, and the lawyer Mario Diaz filed a complaint against prosecutor Javier Zaragoza in the Supreme Court. Has anything happened? No.
It's not normal for a complaint to be destroyed, no.
It's good.
It's a crime. It's a crime. Who is responsible for this? Because I see that politicians in this country, Melchor, I don't know if you notice a change. A recent trend in the last few years in Spain where there is total impunity for powerful people to do whatever they want. Look,
I've lived it. I won't talk. In general, powerful people, there are powerful people. I know a lot of powerful people, and I know miserable people and wonderful people. I mean, the fact of having power doesn't make you evil. That's true. There are all kinds of people everywhere in every trade and profession. But are there influential people in this case who have been part of a structure of sexual abuse and haven't faced the consequences? I find it incredible that in the Congress of Deputies, on some occasions, being Odon Elorza deputy. Because there was a moment when Odon Elorza, Pedro Sanchez separated Odon Elorza, I think. There came a time when Sanchez, seeing everything I was uncovering about the Cabezudo case, he saw that it was a danger for him to have Elorza by his side. And in the Congress of Deputies, on some occasions, some deputy, if I'm not mistaken, from Vox, right? Elorza was speaking, for whatever reason, talking about Odon, about any topic, and they told him in Congress, hey, you, Mr. Elorza, don't talk about that, talk about pedophilia. And when I saw that, I said, isn't there anyone among the 350 deputies sitting there who says, hey, to the one who said that, or hey, Mr. Elorza, what is this about pedophilia? Why must Odon Elorza discuss pedophilia? Why? Huh? Does someone from Vox know something and just throws that at Elorza? How? Huh? And why don't you get to the bottom of the matter? No, nobody has wanted to. Not even political parties. Institutional feminism. Where is institutional feminism? These feminists who have been giving lessons, have any of them spoken up to stand by the victims of Cote Cabezudo, whose lives have been destroyed? There was only one feminist association from Airun, a small feminist association that supported these women. Coincidentally, it was a feminist association that didn't receive a single euro of public funding. The association was called Clara Campoamor. No, I mean, it's very connected to the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party, and Clara Campoamor is linked to the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party, which is true. They have
a good story.
It has a weird story like that. And this association that's always reporting and talking about feminism, where have these people been? Irina Montero and company. Where have they been regarding the Cote Cabezudo case?
Are they not interested, Melchor? This is just another example
of feminism. Only
it's a weapon.
To me, I find it devastating. I mean, the loneliness we've been in, and I say we've been, I mean, the victims, Mario Diaz, the lawyer, who is, the work this man has done is so admirable, and besides the fact that he's now my friend, I have tremendous admiration and respect for him. For the years he has been fighting and fighting and fighting to move this case forward, until he managed to get Cote Cabezudo imprisoned, to have a trial, and to get him convicted. The silence of society, of the media. This in San Sebastian, a lot of people knew about Cote Cabezudo. A lot of people knew about it.
I have a question. Does the case finally end with the villain from behind bars? Was there a trial? So are you satisfied with the result of your work in the end, or did you expect it to be much more publicized and massive, with more people being brought down?
No, let's see. I am satisfied that I fulfilled my duty and that I stood on the side of the victims. That's where I believe I needed to be. And then, if it weren't for Mario, 10? Essentially because of the lawyer and whatever little I could contribute, giving a voice to the victims and to the case. there wouldn't have been a trial, and Cote Cabezudo wouldn't have been convicted. Cote Cabezudo was sentenced to 28 years in prison, which is a sentence. That's a joke if you consider everything he has done.
Yes. But that's more a matter of the punitive law here in Spain, isn't it? Well,
But the fact is that he was convicted, and at the trial he was. I thought it was very beautiful. Like the lawyer who ultimately speaks on behalf of the victims told the court when he was asking for the conviction. And he says, what matters to us more than the years that Cote Cabezudo gets? It's a sentence that reflects the truth of the events that have happened, of what Cote Cabezudo has done with these women. I mean, that's what our main goal, that's what the lawyer said. A statement of proven facts, as it's called legally, that reflects the truth of what has happened. Then the number of years the court considers. To me, the sentence seems absolutely minor, but I think it's very important to have managed to reach a conviction without
the lawyer. Sending him a big greeting from here. Mario.
Diez.
Mario Diaz, you're a damn great guy, aren't you? But really great, yeah, because I can imagine how frustrating it must be to try. Because, of course, my ego, when you talk to a victim, after all, on top of that, it wasn't just one. How many women? Good question. Was it a class action lawsuit?
So collective, how many women did Cote Cabezudo abuse? Well, by Cote Cabezudo, there could have been dozens and dozens. I mean, Cote Cabezudo, yes. Spain has never had a serial rapist like Cote Cabezudo. The complainants in the trial were 21 just in the trial, yes. And there are girls who didn't report it because they said, seeing the ordeal these girls are going through, the treatment they're receiving. From Judge Ana Isabel Perez Asensio, I don't want to. But I've already suffered enough with Cote Cabezudo, so I don't want to suffer again in court on top of that. So were there some who didn't want to press charges? Well,
a huge hug and great recognition to those brave women who dared to go through that ordeal.
Yes.
And in the documentary,
in their name, some of these girls appear with their faces, girls for whom I have immense affection and gratitude for letting me be by their side.
Damn, Melchor, it's incredible. Do you think that without all that public attention you gave them, without the lawyer's persistence, this guy would have gotten away with it? I mean, this was a guerrilla war for...
to put that bastard behind bars. I think that having been able to contribute even modestly in some way, because I was the only one who gave them a voice. Let's say, well, the voice is very important because if the
people don't make noise, at the end of the day, everything can be swept under the rug.
Like they were doing. But if not, it's because of Mario Diaz, the lawyer who didn't give up and who, when facing a judge and who mistreated the girls, who mistreated him, and he didn't stop until he managed to get them removed. It's very significant that from 2013 to 2018, Ana Isabel Perez Asensio did not order Cabezudo's imprisonment, and that when this judge was removed, the court, for not fulfilling her duty, the case goes to a judge named Julian Garcia Marcos, who immediately orders imprisonment. But without the work of Mario Diaz, without him being there, without giving up, without continuing to fight, it would have been impossible. And Cote Cabezudo would have gotten away with it. Absolutely.
This story ends happily because of your perseverance, the bravery of the girls, and the great work of Mario Diaz. I include you too, Melchor, for your bravery. Now I want to discuss the personal consequences you faced from all this. but I'm still missing several pieces. I'm still waiting for the judge who protected him to fall. I'm still waiting for Odon Elorza to fall. I'm still waiting for the host of the Media Set Roulette show to fall. Jorge ¿qué? Jorge Fernandez, who is still spreading smiles and affection with that charisma. Then there's a monster behind who takes pictures with the minor while, you know what I mean, while he finishes. This is simply brutal. Only the one who was recruiting has been caught. There's one missing. A lot of pieces in that whole structure of pedophilia and sexual violence.
It's missing. No, and that's why I'm telling you that I'm still investigating, that there will be a second part of the documentary, and that I'm not going to stop. And that the fundamental credit goes to these girls whom I adore, who deserve a lot of credit for continuing to fight. Despite how they were treated by Judge Ana Isabel Perez Asenjo and by Mario Diaz, the lawyer, those are the ones who deserve credit. I mean, the silence of my colleagues, just to say something, because I don't consider myself a colleague of all these scoundrels, but the silence of journalism is terrifying to me. When I brought it up, they interrupted me and I couldn't elaborate on it. The Cote Cabezudo case and Odon Elorza. At Media Set, a very well-known journalist sent me a WhatsApp message saying, Melchor, you're shameless. Do you want to mention that journalist? I keep it to myself. It's a personal little story, a very well-known journalist. No, you don't want to.
Mention him, right?
No, it's just that I'm too lazy, but it's not because I want to hide it. It's just that I'm too lazy. I don't want to tell personal stories, but it was terrible for me. But why? Did he just call you shameless and nothing else? Why mention Odon Elorza? I know what. It's because he's a friend of Odon Elorza. He's a journalist from Gipuzkoa. And I told him, hey, I bring up Odon Elorza because this case is there. Huh? And I said, in any case, the shameless one, Odon Elorza, can't go. And why do you have to bring this up now? This is unbelievable. You're shameless? I don't know what. And I said, hey, any time is a good time. To report a rapist? I mean, what is this? I couldn't believe it. Now I'll show you. Yes. And even though Odon doesn't...
Even if he isn't, well, no, he has a final conviction. He was at least funding Cien's activities with public money. Proven with videos. Well...
That is what?
Is a journalist doing insulting?
Is this it? Regarding Odon Elorza, another one on one of the occasions when Mario Diaz was requesting Cabezudo's imprisonment. When a lawyer requests imprisonment, a hearing is held, which is in the courtroom. The judge, the accused, present there, the prosecutor, and the prosecution. And on some occasions, a hearing for imprisonment was held without the presence of Cote Cabezudo, which is something crazy, since they're going to debate whether someone goes to prison or not. And that man isn't there. And on one occasion, Cote Cabezudo didn't show up, and his lawyer said it was because he was in the hospital. The next day, a photo of Odon Elorza appeared in the Diario Vasco, taken by Cote Cabezudo. After telling the court that he couldn't attend a prison hearing because he was in the hospital, he was actually taking a photo of Odon Elorza. At La Concha Beach, Odon Elorza's beach, I was there with Odon Elorza. The only thing I'm saying is what's true. I have never said that Odon Elorza is a pederast, a pedophile. I haven't said that. What I have said, and I repeat, is that Odon Elorza, there is a witness who points to him as a key person in the Cote Cabezudo network, yes, just by seeing them in the network for recruiting the girls, yes. I have told how in court in San Sebastian and a court in San Sebastian, A witness required to tell the truth with his face, with his name and surname, looking at the judge, said Odon Elorza is known in San Sebastian as the Folaniños. I'm not the one saying it, okay? Odon Elorza sued me and lost, because everything I say is backed up by court cases.
Totally. Melchor tengo. I want to wrap up the journalism topic. I find it so outrageous, so serious, the fact that none of your colleagues stood up for you when you practically lost everything. Your position? Not even Pedro J., not even your fellow co-founders of El Mundo supported you?
No, when I say nobody, I mean it, my friends. But they didn't have it, huh? No, they didn't have the ability in any way.
What do you think is the reason for that lack of support from journalism?
Well, it's because in this matter, the names of important people, influential people, come up.
I mean, do you think those influential people might have made some phone calls saying you have to send Melchor into exile? Melchor can't do it anymore. I have no doubt at all. I have no doubt. And with people you considered your friends within journalism, right? Yes.
Yes, people I thought could react or people who could report about it.
Matter?
Mario Diaz. He said that he approached many well-known journalists to try to get them to talk about the case. And that they didn't even respond to him. I tried when I had my production company and started putting things out, that some media outlets would talk about the case. I remember I went to Antena 3 and spoke with the show Espejo Público, which is hosted by Susana Griso, to sell them a report. And I said, hey, I want to see if you're interested in me doing a report for you about the Cote Cabezudo case. Well, and I told them about the matter, right? And they told me, no, we're not going to buy a report from you. And then I told them, hey, okay, that's fine. I'm not here to do business. Obviously, if I did a report for them, I was going to charge them. I said, what I'm interested in is getting the case out there. So don't buy the report from me, but if you want, I'll give you the documentation, the information, and you can do it yourselves. Because there are a lot of victims here and so on. Huh? I mean, it's not like that. He says, no, the media they haven't reported it because there wasn't any information, because they didn't know. No. Everybody knew about this and nobody wanted to report it.
Damn, Melchor, that's incredible. Let's discuss the documentary. When did you decide to make the documentary?
Well, when I see it together with Mario Diaz and the victims that the media doesn't report. And so we thought it was an interesting path to explore. Making a documentary that captured the essence of the case and try to put it on some platform, because people watch that kind of thing on platforms. And who bought it from you? And then initially Disney bought the documentary and they paid good money for it, because the documentary, it's not for me to say since I produced it, but it's very well made. And it was a complex documentary, the one that's currently on Netflix, I'm going to
watch it, and I recommend everyone does too.
And I hope you watch it with a critical eye and tell me what you don't like about it. But you'll see that the value, the level of production is high. Well, and then Disney buys it, Disney announces it on their media, on their social networks. The premiere was on November 23rd. If I'm not mistaken, they distribute the documentary to journalists who write about premieres and stuff And the day before the premiere, they tell us, hey, it's not going to premiere, just forget about us and keep the documentary. And do whatever you want with it, but it's not going to premiere. Shortly after Disney made that decision, a documentary they had already paid for, they decided not to release it, even though they had already announced it on their platform to their subscribers and so on. The government approved a series of tax benefits that brought Disney several million euros in revenue. And then, the documentary was originally 4 episodes, and then we went to Netflix, and Netflix told us they were interested. They said, we don't get involved with the content or want to change or remove anything. But they said it had to be 3 episodes because commercially they're interested in having 3 episodes, not 4. So we had to re-edit or...
edit
it again. Yeah, I totally get it. If you have 4 episodes and you have to cut out an hour, right? You must redo everything. Yeah, because if not, it loses its meaning and coherence, so we left it at 3 episodes. But I insist on this. Netflix didn't tell us, hey, we want you to remove this, this, and this. Netflix didn't say that. No, we didn't have anything to remove or cut, just that instead of 4, 3, and Netflix fulfilled its commitments. They released it, and even though Netflix doesn't give you viewer numbers, we know for a fact that it worked out very well for them, and it's still there on the platform. No, and on top of that,
I think with this interview, because I want people to watch the documentary in
their name. Why? Do you think Disney canceled? Well, because the phone rang. What can I say? Does it seem to me? And then there was something about certain tax deductions, maybe? Well, yes, there were some tax modifications from the government that benefited a Disney. But here I, Jota, am very precise. When I talk about facts that I can prove, I say, so why Disney? Well, I have dedicated many years to this and I have produced many things. There is no platform and no company in the world that throws money away. Not even Disney. And that Disney paid for that documentary 4 episodes, which wasn't cheap. I'm not going to give the figures because that's a contractual matter, which isn't relevant here. But it wasn't cheap, and once the premiere was announced, they canceled it. Well, I'm already quite old. I'm a grandfather, right? And what if that happens? Is it because the phones rang and there were important people who told them, you can't premiere this? Some people ask me, why Netflix? And I say, well, maybe they called Netflix and Netflix said, hey, I don't give a damn, I don't care.
I have something and want to make a small correlation. Did you say that Cote Cabezudo said he had a bunch of videos of very important people having sexual relations with women and minors? Right? Yes? Do you know about the Jeffrey Epstein case?
More or less, yes. As a reader.
You know, are you aware that I have found many similarities in...
That modus
operandi? Yes.
Yes.
So
that when you watch the documentary, you'll see that video. Because what matters is that he says that. Cote Cabezudo, it's not in an interview with me. He says it in court and says, I don't want to get it wrong, but he says, if not, because I'm worried. Because on my hard drives I have images, I have some videos in which lawyers, judges, military personnel, Ertzaintza officers, and police officers appear. Damn, so what then? I always mention that video of that statement in Judge Cote Cabezudo's courtroom. That's what allows you to understand what's behind all this, right? It's not that I'm saying there's a conspiracy of important people.
Right? Why?
There are important people, and there are also people who aren't important. I mean, there's a bit of everything. And I don't like conspiracies, nor do I like them, like I was telling you before. And there aren't any important people, perverse and depraved. Well, I know a lot of important and powerful people who are decent and who are neither perverse nor depraved. Nor do they engage in pedophilia. I'm here, and I don't like to speak in
general terms. I agree with that thought. Although I do like conspiracies, but not baseless conspiracies. Like, for example, this. If you tell this to someone, hey, there's a...
No, but this isn't a conspiracy. No, but if they tell it to print, but are these real and proven facts?
Yes, but there are also facts. There are things that have been called conspiracies, and today they are real and proven facts. That's the point. Everything is a conspiracy until it's proven true. Am I clear? In today's world, I think many things are seen as conspiracies.
So, well, that...
Some people are interested
in saying that it's a conspiracy. If the
term conspiracy theorist or conspiracists comes from the Kennedy assassination. Yes, there were some legitimate doubts from the rednecks. Okay, they didn't have it. They didn't know how to do anything with a tube, but did they know something? It was about ballistics, and they said, what you're saying about that bullet doesn't make sense. The government did this. And what did the CIA do? They said, oh, no conspiracies. Just the person we've accused, some random individual.
We've accused. Yeah, look, when I tell you this, to go into detail, because I don't avoid any topic, what comes to mind are some reports that came out about the famous Bar España case, where there were accusations with full names. People, mostly politicians, linked to the Popular Party in Valencia, accusing them of being part of a pedophile ring. And there were some videos where two minors appeared who gave full names and said they had been abused by those people. And shortly after, it was proven that those kids were two minors who had been paid to say that. And there have been many people who have approached me. They saw the Cote Cabezudo case and asked, why not mention Bar España? And I've always said, I don't talk about the Bar España case, because what has come out of the Bar España case, I know for a fact that's not true. Do you know for sure? I know for a fact that it's not. I'm not informed about this. Yes, I know for a fact that it's not. What I've seen about the Bar España case is not true. That's why I don't talk about the Bar España case. And that's why it repels me that someone, when talking about the Cote Cabezudo case, also tries to talk about the Bar España case.
One thing I've noticed is that this happens a lot in Spanish politics. When something happens, or if Mr. Elorza is from the Socialist Party, right? When something happens, many Spaniards seem mentally programmed to react. If it's about the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party, we always see Sara Santaolalla on television not even debating Antonio Naranjo or my friend Paula Fraga. When you show them that the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party has a corruption case, when you show them that the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party has a case of abuse of underage girls under state care in the Balearic Islands, or that Monica Oltra has covered up cases of pedophilia involving her husband, they always try to find something worse about you. You never criticize people from your party, do you? No, if you notice, that's a long-standing modern endemic problem in Spain. Honestly, I'm amazed. My references appear and there are proofs and documents. Videos like the one of that host from Mediaset. And obviously I changed my perspective towards them, I changed my appreciation for them. And I'm not going to cling to the idea I had preconceived about them before having this information. This happens a lot in Spain. And my question to you is this a modern evil? Him and you? More?
Well, yes, it's a modern evil and not so modern. This has been going on for many years, and to me it's unbelievable, but there are people who tell me, it's just that you write a lot of articles and you criticize La Sexta a lot. Damn, come on, how could I not? And I say yes, and more every day, because they disgust me. How they give lessons about feminism, and all day long it's about feminism and women. And I don't know what you're saying. Hey, that you're part of a company that has a star? To a guy who has been involved in child pornography, not just pornography, child pornography. To a guy who did a photo session with Cote Cabezudo, with a minor. But a question, me here? So what? You don't talk about that? La Sexta? Ana Pastor, Ferreras, Iñaki Lopez, Cristina Pardo, and the whole gang. Why don't they talk about that?
Because it doesn't suit them, obviously. And I want to ask you, as a journalist, a renowned journalist here in Spain, well...
A journalist who tries.
No, if you are one of the 6 world founders, your career is clearly admirable. Although I'm critical, I told you before. I am very critical of journalism, and I love the phrase where we hate journalists too little nowadays. But you agree with me on that. By exposing everything you've exposed, how have they sold you out? How have they thrown you under the bus? All for a government paycheck and a subsidy. What keeps their business going? Can they hide whatever they're told not to discuss? So that's why I think journalism today, well, and you just have to look at the circus in the House of Representatives. With my friends Vito, Quiles, and Dongo, and Rescue You, they can't ask questions, skip their turn and word, and mute all microphones in the House of Representatives. What is this? There's no precedent for this in Spanish democracy. It's new. Correct me if I'm wrong. What would they say?
If a reporter from La Sexta is there and some guy shows up, grabs his microphone and throws it on the ground, they'd say that fascism is on the rise and so on. That's why I'm telling you. Or if it's a journalist, a black reporter, some woman who gives lessons on democracy, and someone throws the microphone on the ground and says, pick it up, like an orangutan, like a monkey. I don't remember the phrase.
Totally, it is.
What would they say?
It's simply terrible. Melchor, the point is, to what extent is journalism prostituted? I mean, what's the solution?
Well, this, Jora, is like everything in life. No, it depends on each person. Huh? And that's not good enough for me. A lot of people tell me, well, but of course there are journalists who have to make a living. And I say, that's not a justification. I mean, make a decent living, you know? If you're a journalist, you have to do your job decently. And if you don't do it decently, they say, he has to feed his children. I have 2 children and a grandson, you know? If I don't fulfill my obligation, I would be feeding my children in an indecent way. And then, in the end, it depends on the attitudes, on the moral decisions of each person. I'm willing to stop reporting about the Cote Cabezudo case, not me. If tomorrow someone tells me, hey, I'll give you 850 million euros if you never talk about Cote Cabezudo again, I'll tell them to go to hell.
Huge, that's it.
That's what's needed. So that's the difference, right? That's why I was saying there are always pressures. I've been impressed throughout my professional life, and as I told you, I'm already, an older man now, countless times. Never is it. I have never given in to pressure, and always in my life I've been right or I've been wrong only by obeying my own conscience, right? And so, in the end, it depends on each person's attitude. Pedro J. Ramirez, if he had fired me from Diario 16, he would have remained the director, right? And he didn't give in. Did they fire him afterwards? I left, but if Pedro J. had fired me, they wouldn't have fired him. So, well, things depend on the decisions each person makes in their life. And are there people willing to sell themselves? I always say I have value, and I think a lot, but I don't have a price, which are different things. Wow, that's a really good phrase. There's not enough money in the world to make me stop publishing something that I know is true.
That's exactly what's needed in modern journalism. To finish, I want to share a brief thought. Do you think that social media is taking over traditional journalism? Because honestly, I think we have much more credibility. Victor Dominguez, Pedro Borbón, Adrián Resquillo, and myself, than anyone who works for conventional media, for mainstream media. Because at the end of the day, you are a living example of that. And what consequences have you suffered for exposing all this? That nobody trusts them, television and traditional newspapers?
They have less
Trust than ever.
me, Jota, generalizations, like in general, seem dangerous to me.
Social media.
On social media, I find a lot of things that interest me and that I like, and a lot of crap. I'm very critical in journalism. There are still journalists. I think there are few. I can give you names of journalists that I like, for example, if you want. Javier Chicote,
Me responsible.
Head of Investigation at ABC Newspaper, EEH Juan Fernández Miranda, Sno H Deputy Director at El Confidencial COM. I mention those two names because I think they are two of the most relevant journalists right now. And I'm not saying it because they're my friends, which they are, or because they've worked with me, which they have, but I'm giving you those two names, that's all. I mean, there are journalists, but unfortunately, I think there are few media outlets willing to fulfill their obligations. So,
and willing
not to fulfill their obligations in exchange for money.
That's the problem. So, all those good journalists who are left will be overshadowed by the crowd. What? Can I say something? My generation has a real problem. Now, with the televisions, with the newspapers, all of them. Most importantly, because of everything that happened in 2020. And we already know how old the media lined up. And there wasn't a single journalist who said, hey, I'm going to give a voice to scientists who are critical of all this. I'm going to give them a voice. Yes, but in the end...
I always say that this is like politics. Politics is a reflection of society, a reflection, and journalism is also a reflection of the pandemic. I remember how people would go out to applaud at 8 in the evening. I remember. I never stopped going out during the pandemic, not even when it was forbidden. I was insulted on the street by these balcony police that were around, and I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. And then you say, Spanish society is just like that. It's not just politicians. Where do they come from? They're not Martians. They come from society. You're right, huh? Will there be elections? And, 7 million people will vote for the Socialist Party. Why the political parties, especially Spanish Socialist Workers' Party, NPP? Their sex. I know people who tell me, no, I vote for Spanish Socialist Workers' Party. And I say, well, but, And what if Spanish Socialist Workers' Party puts Jack the Ripper at the top of the list? I vote Spanish Socialist Workers' Party, that's it. So I say, but that's not a party, it's a cult. I mean, they're cults, and I don't like cults. Did you say PP too? Yes.
Well, Melchor, honestly, it's been an incredible show. I wish.
I'm grateful for the invitation and happy to be here with you. I hope you
felt comfortable, like at home. Well, folks, that's all for today. I want you to know that you have the test rate link in the description, and I want you to know that I'll leave the link for my private community in the pinned comment. Where does the exclusive section begin? With the great Melchor Miralles. Thank you, Melchor.
For being here today. Thank you so much, Jota. Thank you very much to you and your whole team.
Gentlemen, don't miss the documentary in their name. Do it not for Melchor, do it for the victims and for...
For them.
Do it for them. I myself am not going to miss it. A big hug and see you next time.